Lesson 4, we're looking at composed transformations. What's going to happen in this lesson is we are going to have more than one thing happening. And we're going to try and figure out what did they do to go from what they started with to what they ended up with. Or they are going to tell us a couple of things to do, and we're going to do all of those things. So on example 2, they want us to translate the quadrilateral 7 units to the left and then reflect it across the line x equals -3. Like the book says, this is a glide reflection. We're not going to have a test question about this is a glide reflection, what it's called. But so first thing is we go 7 to the left. Now, since we're doing multiple things, you go 7 to the left. Go ahead and mark your points. See how they did that? Mark all your points. Okay? And then at that point, now we can go ahead and trace that, and then we can reflect it across that line x equals -3. So then you would just draw the line. I'm sorry, we don't have to, we're not doing a rotation here. Draw the line x equals -3 and then reflect. So look at how far each point is from that line of symmetry. You know, M prime, for example, look at where that's at. Okay, so that would be 2 units. M prime is 2 units to the left. We'll go 2 units to the right. Now, if you'll notice on these, this is the second time we moved this. So the second time we moved it, we are going to put a double prime. We're going to have 2 marks next to these letters because it's our second time that we moved them. Example 3, now here is the one where they are saying what is a sequence of transformations that maps ABC to A prime B, A double prime, B double prime, C double prime. So they are just going to give us this, and they're going to say how did we get from the blue triangle to the red triangle. So blue triangle to the red triangle, there's a couple different ways maybe that we could do this. What the book's saying is we're going to translate this 8 units to the right and 6 units down, and then we're going to reflect it. So they actually kind of did, it's kind of 3 things, but if we do the translations all in one step, going to the right and down, and the same step, and then do that reflection, then we can say it's kind of only 2 things that we're doing to get to that point. So the try it says what is another sequence of transformations that maps from the one triangle to the other triangle. Well, another thing we could do would be if you do that in a different order, actually will make this work also. So if we did reflection across the y-axis, and then translate 6 units down and 8 units left. That would actually end up working also. Okay. When you do these, when you say what's another sequence, if they said, you know, we went 8 to the right, 6 down, and then reflect across the y-axis, if you just reverse your translations, that is not considered a different sequence. Understand? You can't just say, well, instead of 8 to the right and 6 down, I'm going to go 6 down and 8 to the right. It's the same thing, okay? So don't just rearrange a translation order. That doesn't count as being a different sequence. So we look at the key concept. Just says you can use a sequence of 2 or more transformations to map a pre-image to its image. This one, here's an example. They did a rotation. So they translated 3 units to the right, and then they did a 90-degree clockwise rotation. We know, just by looking at this graph, we know going from this this blue triangle to the red triangle, we know it got turned somehow. We know there's a rotation involved. Okay, so you know, the question is, what do we want to do? Well, you could, if you wanted to, another way of doing this, you switch this around. You do a rotation first, you know, trace everything out, do your rotation until it's turned the same direction, and then decide how you're going to translate it. Because to me, this is a little difficult to tell, oh yeah, I need to just translate it 3 units, looks like, and then I'm going to rotate it and it's going to work. To me, I would rather do the rotation first, get it turned. Okay, so in other words, if we went through that process here, if I start out with this, and again, we'll try to be a little bit neat here on drawing this. If we start out with this, there's that axis, there's the other axis. And then I can try to turn this. So it looks like if I turn that, there's 90 degrees clockwise. So 90 degrees clockwise. Now, to me, it looks like it's positioned kind of the same. Actually, what's going to happen here now, though, a little different, though, isn't it? It's not just the opposite order. Now, after I did the rotation, now I'm not going to be moving it to the right. I'm going to be moving it down 3 units. Okay? So that was 90 degrees clockwise, and then down 3 units is a different way. Okay? And again, that's up to you. You can do it like the book. My suggestion, though, maybe would be doing the rotation first is going to make your job easier. So look at the do you know how, number 4. Describe a sequence of transformations that maps from one to the other here. Okay? Does it look like we're just sliding and reflecting, or does it look like we're doing any turning on this one? We are turning. Okay? So since we're turning, again, like we did on that last one, my suggestion would be maybe to go ahead and do your turning first. Might make things easier for you. And a little difficult sometimes here with the stylus to get this to do exactly what I want, but on your paper, the more accurate you guys can be, the more nicely you can draw your lines and things. That'll make your graph more accurate when you work it out. So if I go to turn this, then I'm going to do there a 90-degree turn. 90-degree turn. Does that kind of look similar now? Kind of. Now here's the problem, though. Look at where our letters are. This is the first time this has mattered. Our letters aren't in the same spots, are they? Now you might say, well, we can do a reflection. If you do a reflection, though, look at W, for example. Where's W going to end up if we do a reflection now across the y-axis? It's going to be where that, yeah, it'll be where that X prime is. It'll be on the top left. That still isn't going to work, is it? So in this case, first time it matters, really, we are going to have to think about also which direction we are rotating. Okay, so we rotate this direction counterclockwise. Does that look like it's lining up better? Yes, they are now exactly in the spots where it looks like now all we got to do is a translation. So translation, pick out any point you want. I'm just going to go with W here. And let's see, how do we have to go from W to W prime. Okay, looks like down 6. Now, always make sure, when you look at the numbers, make sure they're going by ones here, which they are. Okay, so this one then, that is going to be our sequence. So we're going to have to do, again, the direction matters. We're going to have to do 90 degrees counterclockwise rotation, and then translation down 6 units. Okay, we're going to skip number 5. We're not going to find another way we could have done that. Look at number 6. We're going to draw an image after a reflection across the line y equals 1 and a translation 1 unit to the right. So reflection across the line y equals 1. So y equals 1, and we're starting with the blue triangle. Just ignore the green triangle here if you can. Y equals 1 is going to be a horizontal line. All the y values are 1 there. So we reflect across that. So if you want to start with what's close, z is 1 above it, we'll go 1 below it. Y was 1 above it, we'll go 1 below it. W was 2 above z, now it's going to be 2 below z. And X was 2 above Y, now it's going to be 2 below Y. Okay, that was our first movement, so whoops. And just illustrating for you guys about making sure, you know, when we do that reflection, our figure should look the same. I actually moved 3 units instead of 2, so you could see there how those did not look the same. So that's how we can tell and fix that. And then we're going to translate 1 unit to the right. So at that point, just shifting everything 1 unit to the right. Make sure we're going the correct way here. And those will be double primes then. We'll put 2 marks next to those. When you guys do these, if you're doing a couple things, a couple of transformations, you know, if you want to use pencil for your first one and then use a colored pencil or something for your second one, pen may not be a best choice, because then if you make a mistake, colored pencil is not going to really erase real great either. But just something, if you want to do that, to kind of help distinguish. But if you have your points labeled pretty well, then you're probably okay. Look at workbook page 75. Number 1, they are kind of directing us a little bit, kind of guiding us along here. They're telling us it's going to be a translation left and down, and then a blank across the blank. So kind of if we think about this, if we see a blank across the blank, we know that's probably going to be what? Reflection, right? Okay, so that's going to be a reflection across an axis. Well, if we think about this, if we can kind of visualize moving this thing and then reflecting, it looks like we'll be reflecting across which axis? The y-axis, right? Okay, so we're going to do a reflection across the y-axis, and that kind of helps to figure out at the beginning what we're going to be doing. If we weren't being guided on this, I might just do a reflection first and then do some translations, but since they said do this order, then we need to do this order. Okay, so if we're reflecting across the y-axis, notice O and M are right on the y-axis, so when we're translating this, we're going to have to translate and get it just right on top of that y-axis. So to the left we would have to go, what, 4 units, good? 4 units to the left, and then to get this to match up we would have to go down 5, good. So 4 to the left, 5 down, and then a reflection across the y-axis would be it. Look at number 2. They want us to describe some transformations we could do. Well, if we look at this one, looks like one thing that's happening is what? A rotation. Rotation is happening, so I'm going to go ahead and do that first here. So if I rotate, and I want to think about which way I want to rotate also. Well, that didn't really help. Rotate this way. None of that looks good, does it? Okay, so I thought we had a rotation here. Another possibility could be that we're needing to be doing a reflection. So if we think about this, to get D at the bottom, we would want to do a reflection across the x-axis. So E is 1 above the x-axis, let's go 1 below. F is 2 above, let's go 2 below. And D is 5 above, so we'll go 5 below. And I'm going to mark those primes because that's my first movement. And if you'll notice, this now is looking a lot more like that blue triangle, isn't it? Okay. Now they have the blue triangle just with single primes. They probably should have double primes because we're really doing 2 movements to get there. Anyway, if you think about that, and now what we can do is a translation. Good. So we think about our triangle here. And we can translate, we can move this. So we're going to move, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4 to the left. And 5 up is going to get it for us. Okay, so a little bit trickier one there maybe, but again we are going to be doing probably the easiest way, reflection across the y-axis, or sorry, yeah, reflection across the x-axis. And then translation, 4 to the left and 3 up. The book talks about another way that we could do that. What they're suggesting, we could reflect across the line y equals 1 and then translate 4 to the left and 3 up. I'd rather not, you know, if they tell me to reflect across something besides the x or y axis, that's fine. Otherwise, it's just easier to reflect across the x-axis or y-axis. So I'm not going to voluntarily do that unless they tell me I have to. Look at number 3. They want us to do a rotation of 180 degrees and then a translation 3 to the left and 7 up. The question might be, well, are we doing that rotation clockwise or counterclockwise? The answer is, if we do 180 degrees, it actually doesn't matter. We'll go ahead and do counterclockwise, since that's what the book's always been wanting us to do if they haven't told us. So first thing would be to do that on your tracing paper, and then we're going to do 180 degrees. So 2 times that will turn that, which should put us down in the third quadrant here. This is where you guys can poke holes through your papers. It's a little difficult for me on here to maybe do this. -2, -4. So this red piece here, you guys can ignore that at this point. That was just to help me with my rotation piece. Okay, so from there now we're going to translate 3 to the left and 7 up. So 3 to the left. I'll just use color here so we can see the movement happening. 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now the nice thing about this, it's a square, and so I can just kind of look if I can count right this time. D is 2 to the right of that. B is 2 below that. A is going to finish our square out here. The only disadvantage to doing what I just did, if we counted wrong for B, then we just missed, or for C, then we just missed the whole thing. So probably not a bad idea to count on 2 of the points at least, just to double check that it's going to look like your square. and then that would be our answer for that one. Okay. If we look at number 4, they want us to describe the transformations. Again, probably should have done a double prime here in the book since we're doing a couple things, since it says transformations. On this one, initially you might think that we're going to do a rotation, but if you'll notice, look at the letters, and notice the X is kind of still that top spot, but the Y and the Z got flopped around. So that tells me that they did a reflection here actually. Okay, which axis does it look like we want to reflect across? Well, what do we want to switch? We want the Y and the Z to switch, so that means we need to reflect across the Y axis. Good. So across the Y axis, if we look at this, Z is our closest point, is 2 to the right. We'll go 2 to the left. X is 5 away. And Y is 6 away. Okay, so that would be our reflection. Now it looks like it's just a matter of doing a translation. The translation is going to be 3 to the right and 6 down. Number 6, they want us to map this quadrilateral with a reflection across the x-axis followed by a translation 4 units to the left and 2 units down. So reflection across the x-axis, first of all, a little bit different on this problem, by the way. We're going from calling it ABCD to HIJK. So what that means, A will change to H. It's 2 above right now, we'll go 2 below, and be careful here because kind of where the numbers are kind of blocks where we might see one of our squares. B was 3 above, it would go 3 below, and that'll change to I. C would be 1 unit below that, which is going to be J. Not sure why they're changing letters here, but and then D is going to go 2 below, and that'll be K now. And then I'm just going to, after we do our other stuff here, we'll just call it H prime, I prime, J prime, K prime, just to distinguish it. So now we're going to go 4 to the left and 2 down. So if we take H, maybe since we're going to the left, we go 4 to the left and 2 down. That's where that point would end up, so that'll be H prime. Again, it's probably best that we try it with at least one other point just to make sure we're doing this consistently. So if we take I, maybe, four to the left and 2 down. So that'll become an I prime there. Okay, so then J prime will be 1 unit below that, and then K prime will be over here. So something like that. And again, I know it's a little bit of a mess here. I've got all these lines drawn and stuff, but that's what that would look like. Number 7, they're asking which sequence of transformations maps triangle QRS to triangle ABC. So if you look at this one, when they're changing letters on us again here, the Q and the A would match up, for example. So if you look at where the Q and A are right now, it looks to be that we might be doing a couple things. We might be doing a reflection and a rotation here to get that to happen. If we can kind of visualize. So since it's multiple choice here, if you want to just go through the options and see what happens. For A, we're starting with QRS. We're starting with this blue triangle. And I guess rather than QRS, maybe I'm going to label these ABC just to keep track of what's matching with what here. So part A, it's saying maybe that we're doing a rotation of 90 degrees. So let's look at this. If we were doing a 90-degree rotation, and again, we're going to assume counterclockwise since they didn't say, and that's what they always do. And then a translation 3 to the left. Translation 3 to the left. That would. So that actually is going to take us away from what we have, away from that y-axis, and then reflect across the y-axis. Now, if you look, we're 6 away. So if we flip that, A and B are 6 away from the y-axis right now. On the left, they're going to be 6 away on the right when we do that reflection. I'm going to go ahead, since C has a rotation involved with it, I'm going to go ahead and look at that one. So A did not work. Let's just go ahead and look at C since it's similar. Rotation 90 degrees, again we're going to assume counterclockwise, and then 3 to the right, 1, 2, 3, and then a reflection across the y-axis. That is going to be the winner here. Okay, now when you do this, I actually made a mistake earlier looking at this, and I thought A was correct. Well, I went to the right instead of the left. So anytime you do a problem like this, if you have time, go ahead and do all the options and then make sure that you only find one of them that works. You know, A, B, C, D, there should only be one that works out of these choices. And then if you find more than one that works, then you made a mistake. Then just look at it and then figure out, you know, where did you make the mistake out of those options. So this gives you an idea of how to compose transformations.